Good evening. You're watching the main news on HOY International Business Channel. I'm Maisy Mok. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. China vows to keep its door open as it woos foreign investment in annual trade expo. Singaporean leader Lee Hsien Loong announces plans to hand over power to his deputy. And in football, Harry Kane earns yet another hat-trick while propelling Bayern Munich past Borussia Dortmund. China has pledged to expand free trade zones and make it easier for foreign investors to enter the market. The remarks were made at the opening of China International Import Expo, where the Australian leader vowed to work constructively with Beijing. Chloe Fong reports.
The China International Import Expo kicked off today in Shanghai under the theme New Era, Shared Future. Launched in 2018, the annual trade show is back in its former glory after China relaxed its pandemic controls. President Xi Jinping did not attend the event, but penned a letter which was read out by Vice Premier He Lifeng. Quoting Xi, he said China remains committed to opening up its economy. In his keynote speech, Premier Li Qiang said China will deepen domestic reforms, expand its free trade zones, while relaxing market access for foreign businesses and protecting their legal rights and interests. Li added Beijing will continue to pursue accession to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, which currently has 11 member nations. One of them is Australia, one of China's biggest trading partners.
And we know that constructive economic engagement between countries helps to build relationships, and that is why the government that I lead will continue to work constructively with China. I look forward to seeing the businesses represented here at the China International Import Expo building even stronger ties between our nations. You've already shown us what is possible. Sheshe.
Albanese is the first Australian leader to visit China since 2016. The two countries have been embroiled in diplomatic disputes in recent years. China accounts for 1/3 of Australian exports last year, and Albanese's mission is to ensure a healthy relationship moving forward. He is expected to meet Xi tomorrow in Beijing, where the center-left leader has said he will raise concerns over tensions in the South China Sea. Apart from Australia, the United States is also sending a large delegation to the Shanghai Expo, which runs until Friday. Chloe Feng, Cable News.
Also at the Shanghai Trade Fair is Chief Executive John Lee, who promoted Hong Kong's role as a super value adder for global firms wishing to tap into the mainland market. Giving a speech at a forum, Lee noted that over 300 firms from the SAR are taking part in the expo, the most since the event was launched. He touted the city's infrastructure, low tax regime, and common law system, and the abundance of professionals to provide value-added services. At another session, Financial Secretary Paul Chan lashed out at certain nations for their protectionist policies and Cold War mentality. He said such a mindset will only hinder global economic recovery in the post-COVID era. Back locally, Customs have seized $140 million worth of drugs, including the second batch of fentanyl detected in Hong Kong in 3 years. The drugs were hidden inside a shipment of air compressors from North America. Over 480 kilograms of drugs, including cannabis buds, methamphetamine, ecstasy, and fentanyl, were intercepted by customs at its Tsing-yi cargo examination compound late last month, with an estimated street value of $140 million. The contraband was stashed in 15 air compressors, which arrived from North America by sea.
空氣壓縮機嚟香港係甚為罕見嘅。
Alex Wong, Divisional Commander of Containerized Cargo Examination, explained that officers' suspicions were raised as such shipments from North America are rare. Upon inspection, officers discovered welding marks on the metal containers, while labels were affixed to conceal the joints. The device's internal components were also missing, presumably removed to create space for the packets of drugs. Customs eventually traced the shipment to a recipient in Tuen Mun. The 23-year-old man who took delivery of one air compressor was arrested at the scene. 14 other compressors were delivered to a logistics center in Hsien Loong, and customs are now looking for other members of the syndicate.
過去3年裏邊咧，今次只係發現咗第2宗嘅案件。
Jackie Zhang, Divisional Commander of Drug Investigation, said this is only the second fentanyl smuggling case in the past 3 years. Customs will investigate whether the 3.2 kilo batch of fentanyl was intended for local distribution. But the influx of cannabis products is on the rise. Over 2,000 kilograms of the drug arrived in the first 10 months of this year, a fourfold increase compared to the same period in 2022. Numerous groups have gathered outside the U.S. consulate to denounce a bill proposed by American lawmakers to sanction Hong Kong officials and judges. Chanting no fear in safeguarding national security, the patriotic groups protested outside the Garden Road compound throughout the day. They ordered American lawmakers to stop interfering in Hong Kong affairs after a bill was presented in U.S. Congress to sanction 49 SAR officials involved in the national security law. The Office for Safeguarding National Security also expressed strong opposition, labeling the bill a piece of waste paper. Security Chief Chris Tang, who is already sanctioned earlier, said the U.S. lawmakers acted like triads. Turning overseas, Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong announced plans to step down next year and hand over power to his right-hand man, Deputy Prime Minister Lawrence Wong.
Leadership transition for any country is always tricky. I've thought this over carefully, discussed it thoroughly with Lawrence and the ministers, both 3G and 4G. Lawrence and the 4G team have been serving for many years now. They've taken on greater responsibilities and they are preparing well to take the helm. I ask each of you to give Lawrence and his team your full support, help them win a strong mandate, and work with them to take Singapore to greater heights. Thank you very much.
Giving a rough timeline, Lee said he plans to retire before his ruling People's Action Party, or PAP, turns 70 late next year. The city-state must hold general elections by November 2025. Lee previously intended to hand over the reins before turning 70 last year, but the plan was disrupted by the pandemic. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has dismissed calls by Arab leaders for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip following talks in Jordan. But as peace efforts continued, Israel stepped up its offensive in the enclave. Raymond Yan reports.
Another night, another round of Israeli airstrikes. More bombs landed near the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza, toppling buildings and setting rubble ablaze. It was not immediately known how many people were killed, but the Red Crescent Society was seen taking scores of injured to hospital. Palestinian authorities said more than 9,400 people have now been killed in Gaza in the past month. Contrary to Israel's claim that it was targeting only structures occupied by Hamas, Al Jazeera says that Israeli forces were now hitting water tanks in an apparent attempt to cut off vital elements from locals, forcing them to flee south. With the conflict set to enter a second month, Arab leaders are now trying to work out a ceasefire. Foreign ministers from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt gathered in Jordan for talks, while U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also traveled to the kingdom. Little seemed to be achieved from the meeting, as the two sides remained split.
It's our view that a ceasefire now would simply leave Hamas in place, able to regroup and repeat what it did on October 7th.
We need to get our priorities straight. Right now we have to make sure the war stops. We have to make sure that we do not contribute to creating the same conditions that in which this violence erupted.
Israel has flatly rejected calls for a ceasefire, saying its operation will continue until Hamas releases more than 200 hostages. But the militant group said around 60 of the captives have now died because of the Israeli bombardment. Raymond Yang, Cable News.
The airport in the German city of Hamburg remains closed after a gunman rammed his car through the security gates and intruded the tarmac last night. According to police, the armed man fired 2 shots in the air and threw Molotov cocktails before parking his vehicle near a Turkish Airlines aircraft. He then demanded that he and his 4-year-old daughter, who was in the car, be flown to Turkey. Reports suggested the incident stemmed from a custodial dispute after the child's mother alerted police that her daughter had been abducted by her husband. Police negotiators have established contact with the 35-year-old Turkish national in hopes of ending the standoff. All flights have been grounded or diverted, affecting more than 35,000 passengers. On to the weather now. Mainly cloudy tomorrow with sunny periods during the day. Temperatures will range between 24 and 30 degrees. Similar conditions in the next few days. That's our main news for Sunday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Maisy Mok. Thanks for watching. Good night.